So I want to touch on a topic today that is ways in which you can save money while caring for your pool. And there are several chemicals that you can go to the pool store and buy, or you can go to a hardware or big box store and buy the same exact chemical for way less. Okay, now we're going to touch on some of those chemicals and what they are, but there's also some little caveats, a little bit of some drawbacks to certain chemicals and certain replacement products. So we're going to talk about those as well. So the chlorine, you can use household bleach. You want to make sure, again, it's unscented, that you check the percentage of the chlorine within. Make sure it's not too weak. The better option is to actually look for liquid chlorine, and I know that they sell it at Redner's, Lowe's, some of the bigger box stores, but what you want to look for is the percentage on there. Some of them are going to be 10%, some will be 8%. If you're buying bleach, it's going to be even lower. You're talking, 3% or 6%, which is why, again, I recommend doing liquid chlorine instead of bleach. But check that strength. The higher strength you can get, the higher percentage, the less you're going to need to chlorinate your pool. And liquid chlorine is generally cheaper than buying bleach in a grocery store. So try to find that liquid chlorine if you can. One thing you want to keep in mind with liquid chlorine, it does not store as well as powdered or granular chlorine. Okay, liquid chlorine does lose its effectiveness over time. You want to store it in a cool, dark place and check the dates on them. If you are going to be buying your liquid chlorine at a grocery store, make sure the date is relatively close to the time in which you're buying it, because it does go bad. So if you're buying 12.5% bleach in a grocery store, odds are it's probably already weakened to about 10%. So it lasts about a month before it starts to weaken in a cool, dark place. You can still use it as it gets weaker. You just won't have the same results as if you use it on day one. I would say it probably has a shelf life of about 6 months before you need to get rid of it. I still personally use it even after that. It's just not going to be very effective, but it will still work a little bit. So keep that in mind. For controlling your pH, we'll start with taking your pH and dropping it, pH down. Instead of buying expensive pH down products, you can simply go to your hardware store, big box store, and buy muriatic acid. It usually comes in 2 different strengths. You get your stronger acids, about 31%, and then they do have a weaker one, which is about 15%. I personally like to buy the stronger acid because you use less of it, so it's a little more bang for your buck. Now, the stronger the acid, the cheaper it usually is. The weaker acid is more diluted and it's usually more expensive. So again, you're saving more money. If you have a salt pool, you can almost guarantee you're going to need acid. Salt drives your pH up, acid will bring it back down. This is one of those products, go buy it at the grocery store. You're not going to use a ton of it at a time, but you will need it, especially if you have a salt pool. Now, it is very dangerous. Careful when you're applying it to the pool. Always take safety precautions. Don't ever mix it with chlorine. The fumes are very dangerous, but muriatic acid does have a very long shelf life. You've got to be careful, because if you don't put the cap on tight or it's not a good ventilated area, it can start to corrode some of the metal in your shed or wherever you're storing it. But it does have a long shelf life, a lot longer than chlorine, so it will sit and last for a long time. So again, instead of buying pH down powder, muriatic acid right from Lowe's, great option. Or even just buying it right from the pool store. It's not super expensive. I always prefer liquid acid over powdered acid. That's just my opinion. The best way to save money when you're talking about raising your pH is by using aeration. Aeration simply means putting air into your water. So if you have water features, return jets, point them in a direction to where you can start creating some bubbles and start mixing that water up. That will raise your pH up naturally, and that's free. If you have a hot tub, turn your jets on. That will raise your pH. You can simply put a pump in the water. You can rig up an air pump or a pond pump or something to blast air into your water. That will raise your pH. Okay, and again, it's free. That is the best thing to do, and it will not affect your alkalinity a lot. Another way is by using borax. Borax is sold at the local store. It's called 20 Mule is usually the product that you'll see. It's your best option, in my opinion, for raising your pH and your alkalinity. It will raise both. Make sure if you're not buying 20 Mule, if you're buying another borax product, just check and make sure there's no additives. Sometimes the borax is made for insecticides and stuff, so you want to make sure there's no other byproducts in the borax. You want to broadcast it all around the edge of your pool, very lightly, sprinkling it all around as you're walking, and then you immediately need to brush your pool and brush it really well. It will cake up on the sides of your pool, especially if you have plaster. You want to brush it to make sure it doesn't clump and cake up and stay there. So brush really well after applying it. And borates in your pool is really beneficial anyways. And you want to kind of shoot for a level of between 30 and 50. But we'll get into that another point. The other product that you can get at the store, and when you go to the pool store, this is labeled as pH up or pH rise. It's nothing but soda ash or Arm & Hammer washing soda booster. That's what you're going to see it labeled as, and that is probably your strongest option for raising your pH. It raises it the most, and that's great. You can go buy right at any box store. You don't need to buy the one with the label that says pH up and pay 3 times more. Simply using Arm & Hammer super soda washing soda, that'll work just fine. So just to reiterate, borax, aeration, and soda ash, that'll bring your pH up. You don't need the fancy chemicals for that. All right, for your next one, alkalinity. When you go to the store, this is a big one, Alkalinity Plus or Alkalinity Rise. You're gonna pay a handsome penny if you're buying Alkalinity Rise by the bucket, and you're gonna be a little bit embarrassed to know that that is nothing but baking soda in a giant tub that you just paid a ton of money for. Go to the box store and buy yourself a big old bag of baking soda. It's the same exact thing, the same exact product. It's baking soda. You can buy the Arm & Hammer, they've got 10-pound bags. You can even go to some bigger box stores and get it by the 20-pound bags, 50-pound bags, whatever. But Alkalinity Rise is nothing but baking soda. It does a great job. It brings your alkalinity up. It brings your pH up a little bit, but not much as it does the alkalinity. And again, soda ash brings the pH up more than the baking soda will. So for your alkalinity, baking soda, pH, soda ash. Okay? Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate, and soda ash is sodium carbonate. Okay? Bicarbonate is baking soda. Carbonate is soda ash or washing powder. When it comes to calcium, and again, calcium's so important if you have a plaster pool. It's important even if you have a vinyl pool, but especially if you have a plaster pool. To add calcium, you can again go to the store and buy calcium chloride, or you can look for products called something like Tetraflake, which is made as a de-icer. Tetraflake will work, and that will raise your calcium level up. Again, make sure there's not additional fillers. In Tetraflake, I believe it's perfectly fine to use. If you're shocking your pool with calcium hypochlorite, you may not even need to go buy calcium. The calcium in calcium hypochlorite will raise your calcium level up over time. So keep that in mind. And also, on the flip side, keep it in mind so your calcium doesn't get out of control. This one, when we're talking about salt, this is a controversial topic. It is my opinion that any salt that is 99.5% pure or higher is perfectly fine. 99.5% pure. Okay? And in my opinion, it does not matter if it's water softener salt or pool salt or whatever. It can be Morton salt in the 40-pound bags. As long as there's no byproducts in it or no filler, make sure there's no rust inhibitor or any other filler products. Any type of bagged salt will work just fine for your salt pool. Okay? There is no need, in my opinion, to go buy $16 bags of salt when you can get them for $5 at Lowe's. don't waste your money. As long as it's 99.5% pure or higher, you're fine. With that said, just a brief overview. Cheaper chemicals sometimes mean filler and byproducts and additives. So always be mindful of that. If it seems too good to be true, it usually is. Read the label, check and make sure that there are not fillers. For instance, the cheap chlorine trichlor tablets. The cheap ones from the box stores sometimes aren't as strong, and they have filler, which will gunk up your filter and stuff. So you always want to look at that label and see what percentage it is and what else is in there. And I usually don't advise buying cheaper trichlor tabs for that reason. They'll tear your filter up and all kinds of stuff. All these products I'm mentioning can be used for the BBB method, which is simply bleach, borax, baking soda. I don't really recommend that method only because it's misleading. It makes people assume that they only need bleach, borax, baking soda, when in fact you actually need a little bit more to keep your pool balanced. And since we're on the topic of saving money, a really good way to save money throughout the entire pool season is to add a weekly dose of enzymes. Enzymes will help your chlorine. It'll free it up. It attacks all the non-living organics within your water, helps to eliminate them so your chlorine can focus on sanitizing your water and killing off the algae. Over the course of the summer, this will save you a lot of money and a lot of headache, and it'll help to keep your pool crystal clear. I hope you find that these are helpful tips, and leave me a thumbs up, give me a comment, let me know what you think. Thanks.